All right, this is our next episode of True Wrestling Fan Discussions. Today we'll be continuing the career of Ravishing Rick Rude in 1994 and beyond. I'm your host, Mike.
I'm Frank. We ended 1993 with him on a high note. He's the top dog in the company,
hmm
pretty much where he wanted to be. Kept telling people he was. Unfortunately, 1994 started out hot for him, but then a career-ending injury, and it's just pretty much all over for him. 1994 began with him on January 27th, Clash of the Champions 26. He teamed with Vader in a losing effort against Sting and Ric Flair in an elimination match.
The unholy alliance. Then later
Yeah.
on,
Oh my
it
God.
would fall apart.
Yeah. And this is around the time now where, there's two champions.
hmm
He's made the notation that I beat the man who beat the
Yep,
man, and honestly, he is the
he
top
is.
dog in the
He
company
is.
at this
Yep,
point.
there's no question about that as far as I'm concerned. And he had the big gold belt. The
Exactly.
belt with
That's
the
the belt.
history. That's the NWA Championship. Sorry.
Conversation over.
Yeah.
That's it. You're the champion.
hmm
That other piece of crap that you built, that's a WWE knockoff. That's it. That's second bananas to this. I'm sorry. I mean, like you said, the big gold belt is
hmm
WCW
hmm
or
And
NWA,
then
whatever.
when they unify the championships, they use the big gold belt and they get rid of the
Exactly.
WCW titles. So what does that tell you?
And it's back to the WCW World Heavyweight Championship.
Right. The big gold belt.
No
Right.
international
Right.
moniker put in
Right.
there.
Right. So
Gotta love it. So on February 20th, he wrestled at Super Brawl 4. He teamed with Steve Austin and Paul Orndorff in a losing effort against Sting, Dustin Rhodes, and Brian Pillman in a Thunder Cage match.
hmm
Following that, though, he did have two successful world title defenses against Marcus Bagwell, not really a number one contender, but defended the title against him nonetheless. The first on February 26th at WCW Worldwide, and then the second was on March 3rd on the Power Hour. Again, not rock
I
star
don't
solid
even.
stuff, but he defended the belt.
I don't even. I remember Worldwide. I remember Saturday Night. The Power Hour for some reason I don't remember.
I think that was the Sunday 1 hour
I guess it was. Yeah.
because I always heard about it, but I never watched it. Sometimes I would turn into Saturday night and watch, in that little arena they had. But yeah, the Power Hour was just, to me, Power
That's
Hour
what.
is like watching Velocity or Sunday Night
Yeah,
Heat. It's
yeah,
just
yeah. But
it's
that's what was cool about WCW though. Like on a Saturday night, you could get the champion defending his title. Like
exactly
you would never get that on Superstars of Wrestling. You get the
never.
Intercontinental Champion maybe, but the World Champion not really.
If you were lucky back then, you would see Tito Santana versus Rick Martel for the
Yeah,
900th time,
yeah,
but that's about it.
yeah.
So now in March, he took the title defenses
hmm
into Japan. March 16th in Tokyo, Rude actually lost the title to Hiroshi Hase.
hmm
However, 8 days later, he regained the title from him in Kyoto. And on April 17th, he wrestled at Spring Stampede. He defended the title against Sting and lost. However, May 1st, at Wrestling Danteku, if I said that wrong, my apology, in Fukuoka, Rude pinned Sting to become a three-time World Heavyweight Champion. Unfortunately, this is where that last title defense kind of took a rough patch for Rude because during the match, Rude injured his back upon receiving a suicide dive
hmm
at ringside. He landed on the corner
Well,
of
the
the
thing
raised
was,
platform.
remember, it was a race. Yeah, that was the whole thing. It was a raised platform. It wasn't flat, so it was
Yeah.
actually pretty dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. I mean, I don't. Obviously, it's not Sting's fault.
No.
Apparently they had some. I think they had real heat that Rude was pissed off at him.
I'm
But
sure he was
but it was it's a freak, kind of a freak accident. Like on that raised platform, you hit.
if anything, I would be blaming WCW. Like, why do we have
Right.
this
Why would they
ridiculous
even have it? Well,
platform?
because they were in Japan. They were in Japan. That's why. That's why.
But even back in the States, they were doing it. And then I was so glad when they finally got
Yeah.
rid of it and you just had the aisleway.
Yeah.
Because how many times we've seen somebody take a fall off there and possibly get hurt?
hmm
So he's unable to wrestle. He was stripped of the title.
Well, we're going into the what was that Slamboree?
Yeah.
We were going into Slamboree, and he was supposed to face Vader. He was supposed to defend the title against Vader. And there were all sorts of rumors of it was going to be Rude versus Flair for the
The unification match.
the unification for the undisputed championship. Um, And that Slamboree, he was there. He was in the building, and Flair was the booker at the time. And him and Flair had a lot of word. They had words because they wanted Roode to come out and relinquish the title, but he was basically going to come out and say, well, because the reason why he was stripped is they said that he used the belt as a weapon. That was the excuse.
Yeah.
So he wanted to cut him to cut a promo explaining like, hey, like this is unfair. I got stripped. Yeah, I used the belt, but Harley Race had interfered before when Sting won the title and nobody said anything, and now it's an issue. But Flair was like, no, that's like a babyface promo. You're getting yourself over. It was a big thing, screaming match, and he walked out of the building.
Honestly, I think the way they did it was wrong. You should have just stripped him of the title and explained what was going on, because I mean, if they're trying to hide something that is eventually going to come out, so it's a BS way of doing it.
But what I don't understand is when he hurt his neck, they stripped him and they said he hurt his neck.
Exactly. They use the injury things.
So why can't you just say he hurt his back?
I don't know. And what makes things even more interesting, on May 14th, remember WCW aired a match between Rick Rude and Sting in an I Quit match that was originally took place February 10th.
Right, they recorded it February 10th.
And what the ridiculous thing was, how does Sting win by countout in an I Quit match?
I didn't watch the match, so I don't know, but
I don't know. But I mean, they aired that match almost 3 months later, when he's no longer champion and no longer wrestling. So I don't understand the reasoning behind that. And what gets even more fun now going forward is Rick Rude's relationship with Eric Bischoff was always really a complicated one. They were close friends. On the other hand, heated rivals, adversaries, whatever you want to call it. Ric Flair has also said that Rude's actions inside, outside the ring were very erratic at the time. He claimed that Rude would be intoxicated while wrestling became a liability. I don't know about that. That's only one person that's come forward with that.
I've never heard anybody else say that. So I don't know.
So you take it with a grain of salt on that one. Now, what's funny is after Rude's injury, he was in possession of the WCW Championship belt. Bischoff wanted it back. Mm-hmm. Knew Rude's behavior at the time was.
And Flair's the one that told him. Flair's the one told him you got to give the belt back, and he's like, no.
Yeah, exactly. If I'm in his place, I'm like, let me talk to the doctors. Maybe there's a chance I can come back and still be the champion.
There was also, remember, you got to remember, Rude and Flair had a lot of heat.
Yes.
There was a whole big thing where Rude wanted Sting's spot. He wanted to be the franchise. He wanted to be the face of WCW. And they're like, well, apparently Flair told him, well, I looked at the numbers and you're just not generating the ratings. Apparently, this is according to Rick Rude. Take it for what it's worth.
I kind of have to believe it.
I mean, I don't know. I haven't seen the numbers, so I don't know. But I mean, WCW was in the toilet. Nobody was doing numbers, so it's not like
exactly. But anyway. Wrestling was down at this point, but he still was one of the top 5 guys, if not in the top 3.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. So there's the thing with the belt.
Yeah, Bischoff actually had to ask Barry Windham to escort him to the dressing room as backup while he asked for the belt back.
No, it wasn't that. The reason why he escorted him to the back was because Flair and Rude had heat, and Ric Flair, apparently Rude was going to destroy. Apparently. So he brought Windham and said, listen, if these guys go at it, let them go at it. But if it gets out of hand and Rude is going to kill him, please jump in. That's what happened.
Okay.
Bischoff has said he was not scared of Rude. Like he knew Rude could destroy him, but like he knew that Rude, he never did anything to Rude. He knew that Rude wasn't angry at him, that he was angry at Flair and angry at the situation.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, after heated words are exchanged and that whole thing, Rude takes him to the parking lot. He opens up his trunk, and sitting there is the title belt and a gun. Now, according to Bischoff, this was Rude's way of saying, I'm not to be messed with, for whatever reason.
He probably just wanted to intimidate him.
He also stated that nothing happened in the incident. I think it's funny because I've heard this story over the years, and I just love the fact he opens the trunk and there's 2 things, and I could just see Rude go, pick one. And if you pick the wrong one,
he just wanted to intimidate him. But like Bischoff said, he picked up the belt, he gave it to him, and he said his piece, and then that was it. He said that was it. He never thought he was going to shoot him or anything like that.
No, I don't. No. If Rude's behavior was erratic back then, as they say, I don't think he was crazy enough to do that. No. That's just ridiculous. Yeah. So he goes off into the sunset for a couple of years. All of a sudden, go ahead. No, go ahead.
He sues WCW. He sues him for $690,000,
Oh
right? And
Jesus!
they're still trying to bring him back. Apparently, he was going to try to come back in the fall. I don't know what happened, and he ends up suing them. So yeah, it wasn't a good way out the door, to say the least.
Not really.
But he had his Lloyd's of London insurance policy, which
He cashed it in,
he cashed
and
it in.
under that policy, once you cash it in, you cannot come back into the ring. If
Right.
you do, you have to pay the money back.
Because he took the bulk payment. There was different forms of that insurance policy where you would get a check like monthly or annually or whatever.
Yeah, and I
He
think he
took the
cashed it out for
lump.
like 450.
Yes, he took the lump sum, which prevented him from ever being able to wrestle again, like you said, unless you paid that money back.
Exactly, which is why a lot of wrestlers who took that policy, you never really saw them in the ring again. And if you did, then they must have paid it back,
Mm.
whatever sum they owed.
Animal was the biggest one that he was able to finagle his thing because Animal somehow had a deal where he was able to convince them somehow like, well, I can't wrestle one on one because of my injury, but I could wrestle in a tag team match. That's why you never saw Animal in singles matches like going forward, like after he came back
That's
from
why we
that.
saw Hawk
So
doing
so
that more than Animal.
he was double dipping. He was getting paid by Lloyd's of London and WCW and
So
WWE.
Root should have talked to him and see how can I
Yeah.
get this and get a
It's all
tag
the
team
Minnesota
partner.
guys. All the Minnesota guys.
I
On that
know,
policy,
right?
yeah.
It's weird. So after all of this, now he shows up in the one company I never thought he would, ECW.
Hmm.
In January of '97, Rude joined ECW as a masked man.
Right.
Once he got on the
He came out.
microphone, you knew
Yeah.
it was him.
The fans knew it was him too, though.
Yep. He debuted at House Party, declaring he was there to quote unquote mess with the
Right.
franchise,
Yeah.
which was Shane Douglas.
Hmm.
He repeatedly harassed Douglas, even to go so far as to spanking Francine Douglas's valet.
This is the first.
I seen some of this stuff, and man, oh my god,
This is like the first time he's kind of like a babyface, pretty much.
he really is. Considering
Yeah.
Douglas is a
'Cause he was
heel,
always a heel. Yeah, because he was always a heel.
I never could see him as a babyface.
No, 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 no. He's a great heel, and I remember watching some of this on ECW like late night. It was on MSG
Mm-hmm.
Network on Saturdays. I think it was like 12 midnight or 1 in the morning, however, whatever.
Yeah, it was
time
late.
was.
It was late.
I remember staying up a few times and I was like, oh shit, Rick Rude's back. And I thought he was going to wrestle. I was hoping because I didn't know about the Lloyds of London and that stuff. I didn't know anybody. I knew he got hurt, but I didn't know about.
Yeah, nobody knew about the
Yeah,
well. The
yeah.
internet again was
Right,
still
right. It was
in
in
its
his
infant stage.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, believe it or not, after he unmasked, he became a color commentator before aligning himself with Douglas and his Triple Threat stable.
Hmm.
However, that didn't last long. July 19th at ECW Heatwave, Rude made a one-time return to the ring, and I'm surprised he was able to do this under the policy. He partnered with Dreamer and the Sandman, and this is against Jerry Lawler, RVD, and Sabu. This is when WWE was kind of making their interpromotional thing with them.
Right, yeah. Hmm.
Match ended in a no contest when he turned on Dreamer and Sandman. And
Now he's a heel again.
yeah, exactly. So he goes, I did my 1 month babyface guy, now I'm back. Now, during the ECW versus the USWA and WWF phase, company competition, Rude helped Lawler win matches against Dreamer and Sandman. Unfortunately, that was pretty much it for him. He was there literally a cup of coffee, didn't stay long, because on August 11th, 1997, during the Shawn Michaels Mankind match on Monday Night Raw, Rude came back as the quote-unquote insurance policy,
yeah.
where he cost Mankind the match and Shawn Michaels won. And I love how Shawn was shocked. Like, wait, what just happened here? Like, who are you? Of course, Rude came out the next week. They kept talking about premiums, paying the premium, the highest bidder, all that nonsense when Vince McMahon interviewed him.
He was in Atlantic City too.
Exactly.
He said the Sweat Hogs.
I love that. He never wrestled as a member. He actually joined DX, which was a shock.
He was one of the original members. No, he was
exactly.
Not only did he join, he was one of the original. He was one of the founders.
Even to this day, it didn't make sense. But okay, whatever. But it made sense for Shawn in winning matches because constantly how many times he got involved. Now, again, this is another organization where he didn't stay long, mainly because it was the Montreal Screwjob that got him to leave.
Yeah, I mean he also had one of these kind of, I wouldn't say handshake deals, but sort of, where he
No,
was
it was a pay by appearance
pay by
contract.
appearance. Yeah. So he
So
at
he
any
wasn't really
moment, right,
contracted.
right, right. At
You could
any
just leave at any time.
he could just leave at any time. And he still stood up on ECW because out of just a
Hmm.
favor to Paul Lee, he still like fulfilled whatever dates he had left. Because
Yeah.
Paul Lee told him like, listen, go get your money in WWE, it's fine. But he actually, still showed up and did some
Still made
stuff.
Francine's life a living hell.
Yeah, did some stuff with them. But yeah, in the Montreal Screwjob, apparently he was really upset. I think he just took advantage of the situation. To be honest with you,
Probably.
I think he was upset. He was loyal to Brett in real life, and Brett said that he was a hero because when that whole thing happened with Montreal and that whole backstage fight, you didn't know what was going to happen. And Root said, "I'm not leaving. I'm going to stay by your side. And if anybody tries anything, I'm taking care of them."
Exactly. Yeah.
Even
He
though he
stayed
was a
in the
member of
locker room.
DX, even though he was a member of DX,
Yeah,
but in
but at
real
this
life,
point now
he
they
was
just
Brett's
made it
friend.
real. Yeah.
Yeah, he was Brett's friend. But apparently he calls Bischoff right after it and tells him everything.
Yep. And at the time, like we said, Rude wasn't signed to a contract, so
Hmm.
he was paid by appearance. So he negotiated with WCW and was able to do so in large part with his frustration in
Hmm.
Montreal. And remember, at that time, he wasn't the only one that left.
Well, Mick
Crush
Foley
had,
walked out, but then he came back a day later.
yeah, Crush walked out. That was no big thing. I mean, a lot of heads turned that night, and it was one of the things that changed wrestling,
Hmm.
forever. But on November 17th, 1997, Rick Rude not only appeared on Monday Night Raw, which was taped, but he also appeared on Monday Nitro, which was live, becoming
Yeah,
the only person to show up on two shows
yeah.
at the same time. It was funny because he was in a mustache on Nitro, and he was in a beard on Raw
Hmm.
when they showed it. And I'll never forget the comment he made. Oh, what a difference a day makes. Now, it didn't stop him.
Okay.
And it was, oh, by the way, before if we can go into it further, he was also the first wrestler to ever be in DX and the NWO.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Congratulations.
So he
And the
cut.
first guy to ever be on two shows at the same time.
Yeah, WWE was taped, and they're like, he was that promo. The promo was too important that they had to have the DX promo. So the WWE just said, let's just let it roll because they
Exactly.
had gotten word that he had left. I mean, it was at the last minute. They're just like, just put it on the air. And he came
And
out, and
Bischoff timed
apparently,
it perfectly.
yeah, and Vince was cursing and everything, cursing
No,
the
I
stone
can't blame him.
apparently. And he cut that great promo and he talked about Bret Hart, that it wasn't right that they screwed over Bret Hart, and he buried Shawn Michaels and buried
Vince
WWF. Yeah,
called
he
them the
buried Sting.
Titanic.
Yeah, he buried Sting too.
Of
He
course he
mentioned
did. He
Sting.
still got animosity
And
back in the company.
he insinuated that he was going to wrestle though, because he
Mhm.
mentioned Sting, and he's like, for what he did to him, he ended his career, he hurt his neck, and he says, but this time I'm going to be a participant in your beatdown or something like that. So you think like, oh shit, he's probably going to wrestle, and apparently he wanted to,
Yes,
but
he
it was
did.
just the Lloyd's of London. It was too much money, and what Bischoff the thing, and Bischoff explains it because I saw an interview with Bischoff, and Bischoff explained, listen, like he had to buy out his contract, which was like 400,000, 450,000,
Mhm.
and then he had to pay a salary on top of that.
Yeah,
And
and he knew management wouldn't do it.
and yeah, they wouldn't do it, and
Well, the
unfortunately,
reason why is because he saw guys like Hogan, Hall and
yeah,
Nash, Dennis
yeah,
Rodman getting paid,
Brett coming in,
Brett, all these
yeah,
guys getting these high dollar contracts,
right,
and he's
right,
over
right,
here with peanuts.
yeah.
And so he's like, "Can you pay it back and let so I can come back?"
But
And
Bishop just didn't have that. He didn't have the juice like
business
that.
wise, it didn't make sense
No, it didn't. It didn't.
because you're talking about paying back almost $500,000 and then signing him to possibly what, a five
Right,
$6 million contract.
whatever the hell it would have been.
And then
Yeah.
what happens if you get hurt in the
Right, he
ring?
hasn't wrestled in
We're out the
years.
money,
Like, yeah, yeah.
especially when they're at the turning point where they're about to start losing money.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it didn't make sense, and that pissed him off. But before all that, Rude was a manager to Kurt Hennig.
Kurt Hennig which is like one of his best friends in real life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I always any wrestling game that had the two of them, I always put them in as a tag team and called them Perfectly Rude.
Yep.
And I wish they would have been a tag team and done that.
It would have been nice
Because the chemistry the two
yeah,
had
yeah,
together
you could
was
tell,
good.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, and of course, once he aligned himself with Kurt, he joined NWO Hollywood.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Jesus. By late '98, Rude and Hennig now were off television due to injuries.
Well,
Hennig,
remember, they joined the Wolfpack for 2 seconds and they quit.
oh,
Remember,
Jesus.
they turned on the Wolfpack? Yeah.
Yeah. This is when the NWO was like, don't know what the hell to do.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, with Hennig out with a leg injury that year, Rude was thought to have cancer. If you remember, They found out later that that wasn't the case. They thought it was testicular cancer. They had him off. It wasn't. Thank God. He officially left WCW in April of '99,
Hmm.
which his last appearance was on April 5th edition of WCW Monday Nitro Backstage Blast. Whatever. But like you said, during the Monday Night Wars, the policy he wanted to come back. He couldn't. So in any event, that's why he left. Now that decision by Bischoff created a huge rift between him and Rude.
Hmm.
At this point, Rude's irate, and I can't blame him because if you think you've got one last run in you and you can be, uh, what's the word I'm looking for, cleared to wrestle, but again, it was just too much money
Yeah,
that had to be put into
and it
it.
wasn't like Vince. Like Vince owned the WWF, so
Exactly.
Vince
Bischoff didn't own
could he didn't
WCW.
own. Yeah, he still answered to people, so he couldn't justify that money. He couldn't get him to do it. And the thing is, like, not for nothing. Like, I understand Rude was hurt or whatever. I'm not saying he was faking his injury,
No,
But the thing is, like, when you cash out something like that, you have to be certain. You have to be 100% positive. And he was a young guy. He was only 35 years old when that. I think 34,
exactly.
35 when that happened. And you can't live like if you get 450,000 or whatever, you
That's not
can't
going
live
to
on that
last long yet.
forever.
No.
Right. So he rolled the dice and it is what it is. It wasn't Bischoff's fault.
And I think even if he did come back, his top dog persona as he portrayed early in the '90s, I don't think he was even going to come close to it
No, I don't
if he
think so
came
either.
back.
Yeah, I
Mid
don't
card
know.
at that, U.S. title
Yeah,
maybe,
yeah, I think so. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Even those
but
promos for something was missing in those promos
he
when
didn't have the
later on.
same.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It was lackluster. It didn't
Yeah,
have the
yeah, yeah.
same. What's the
I don't
word
know
I'm
what it
looking for?
was.
It
The
was
same.
the certain spark
Yeah, yeah,
that he
yeah.
had back then when he was
Hmm.
hungry for it.
Yeah.
Now it was just like whatever. And unfortunately, they never repaired their friendship, which really sucks because on April 20th, 1999, Rude was found by his wife unconscious, passed away at the age of 40.
Yeah.
And there's multiple reasons why I'm not getting into it. But the one thing, Bischoff attended Rude's funeral and his sister demanded that he leave. And he
Hmm.
quoted, he goes, this is why I will never go to another wrestler's
Hmm.
funeral, which is unfortunate.
Apparently,
And
he thinks that the reason why the sister asked him to leave is because the whole thing about the money, about the
it's possible.
not buying, and she probably blamed him, like, oh, well, this wouldn't have happened if he would have been wrestling again. I don't know, but who knows? Who
Yeah,
knows? Who
I
knows? Who
know.
knows?
It's all a bunch of speculation at this
Yeah,
point.
no.
But Bischoff didn't cause a scene. He
Hmm.
obliged her. He left, and he said, "That's it. I'm never going again."
Hmm.
And it's a shame Rude dying, in his prime.
Young.
I honestly think, give it another year, maybe Vince. No, I don't even think Vince would have done it either. To be honest, I don't think Vince would have paid it back either and signed him.
Not
I
at that
don't,
point. Probably not at that point.
not at that price. Yeah. So it's unfortunate that it was over
Unfortunate.
for him. But man, what a wrestling career the man had. And when he's on top, just life shit on him.
Yeah.
One move
Hmm.
ended the course of his career, and it's just a shame.
All right. That's our
But he is
episode.
a three-time world heavyweight champion. Let's get that straight.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
No international
No, no,
garbage.
no. I agree. All right. That's our episode. Please like, comment, share, subscribe. We'll see you guys soon.
Take care.